The Mandela Death That Never Happened. In 2009, paranormal researcher Fiona Broome discovered something impossible when she attended a conference and casually mentioned Nelson Mandela's death in prison during the 1980s. Multiple attendees shared identical memories of his funeral, the riots that followed, and his widow's tearful speeches on television. There was just one problem. Nelson Mandela was still alive, having been released from prison in 1990 and serving as South Africa's president from 1994 to 1999. Broome's discovery launched an investigation into what she termed the Mandela effect, the phenomenon where large groups of people share identical false memories of major historical events. What started as a small group discussion quickly expanded when Broome created a website documenting similar cases of mass memory discrepancies. Thousands of people from around the world contacted Broome with detailed memories of Mandela's death in prison. They remembered specific television coverage, emotional reactions, and historical implications of his death. Many recalled learning about it in school or discussing it with family members. The memories weren't vague impressions. They were vivid, specific recollections that felt absolutely real. Dr. Neil Dagnall from Manchester Metropolitan University studied the Mandela effect phenomenon and found that people reporting false memories of Mandela's death showed high confidence levels and provided consistent details. The memories weren't random confabulations, but shared a common narrative structure that suggested collective false memory formation. Independent surveys conducted by psychology researchers found that approximately 20% of respondents initially believed Mandela had died in prison when questioned before being told the correct timeline. This represented millions of people worldwide who shared the same factually incorrect but emotionally vivid memory. The consistency of false details was particularly striking. People remembered similar images from the funeral, comparable emotional reactions from world leaders, and nearly identical consequences of his death for apartheid. The shared specificity suggested that this wasn't random misremembering, but systematic false memory creation on a massive scale. Recent neurological research has found that false memories activate the same brain regions as authentic memories, making them subjectively indistinguishable from real experiences. People reporting Mandela effect memories show neural activity patterns consistent with genuine recollection, not confusion or uncertainty. The original Mandela effect case established a template for investigating mass memory discrepancies that has revealed hundreds of similar phenomena affecting millions of people worldwide. The discovery that collective human memory could be systematically wrong about major historical events challenged fundamental assumptions about how consciousness records and preserves information. The mirror that changed its words. Millions of people around the world remember the evil queen in Disney's Snow White saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" This quote has been referenced in countless parodies, merchandise, and cultural references for decades. However, in the actual Disney film, the Queen says, "Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The mass misremembering affects an estimated 90% of people familiar with the story. The discrepancy was first widely noticed in 2012 when online discussions revealed that most people were surprised to learn the actual quote uses magic mirror rather than mirror, mirror. The reaction was immediate and global, with millions of people expressing disbelief and insisting they remembered the mirror, mirror version from childhood viewings. Dr. Henry Roediger III from Washington University, a leading expert on false memories, studied the Snow White quote phenomenon and found it represents one of the most widespread examples of collective false memory ever documented. Survey data shows that over 85% of respondents initially recall the incorrect mirror, mirror version when asked to quote the line from memory. What makes this case particularly intriguing is that mirror, mirror appears in the original Brothers Grimm fairy tale, while Disney changed it to magic mirror for the 1937 animated film. However, people specifically remember hearing the mirror, mirror version in the Disney movie, not from reading the fairy tale. Their memories are of the animated queen speaking those exact words. The false memory has become so pervasive that it appears in official Disney merchandise, theme park attractions, and licensed products that use the mirror, mirror phrasing. This has created a feedback loop where the incorrect version has become culturally dominant despite never appearing in the original film. Psychological analysis suggests that the mirror version may feel more natural due to its rhythmic repetition, making it more memorable than the actual magic mirror phrasing. However, this doesn't explain why millions of people have specific audio-visual memories of hearing the incorrect version spoken by the animated character. Recent studies using brain imaging technology have found that people recalling the mirror version show activation in auditory memory regions, suggesting they're accessing actual remembered sound rather than confabulating the quote. Their brains appear to be retrieving authentic auditory memories of words that were never spoken in the film. The Snow White quote represents a perfect example of how mass false memories can become more culturally significant than actual historical records, with the incorrect version achieving widespread acceptance despite contradicting the documented source material. The Berenstain timeline shift. For millions of people who grew up reading children's books in the 1980s and 1990s, the beloved bear family was known as the Berenstain Bears. Their memories include seeing that exact spelling on countless book covers, pronouncing it Berenstein, and correcting others who mispronounce the name. Today, every book, video, and piece of merchandise shows Berenstain Bears, spelled with an A. The discrepancy affects an estimated 70% of people familiar with the series. The Berenstain Bears series was created by Stan and Jan Berenstain with an A in 1962, and according to all official records, the name has never been spelled with an E. However, the volume of people who distinctly remember the Berenstain spelling has led to extensive investigation by psychologists studying collective false memory formation. Dr. Cynthia Lieberman from Northwestern University conducted surveys involving over 5,000 participants and found that 68% initially recalled the spelling as Berenstain when asked to write the name from memory. When shown the correct Berenstain spelling, many participants expressed shock and insisted they remembered the E version from childhood. The false memory is particularly strong among people who own the books, rather than just seeing them occasionally. Many adults report having arguments with their own children about the correct spelling, with parents insisting it was Berenstain, while children pointed to current books showing Berenstain. Physical evidence of the false memory has emerged in the form of old VHS tapes, library cards, and schoolbook fair catalogs that some people claim showed the Berenstain spelling. However, when these items are examined, they consistently show Berenstain, suggesting that even documentary evidence is subject to misremembering. The consistency of the false memory extends to pronunciation, with most people reporting they said Berenstain as children. This pronunciation pattern doesn't match the actual Berenstain spelling, which would typically be pronounced Berenstain, yet millions of people share the same mispronunciation memory. Internet forums dedicated to the Berenstain discrepancy have documented thousands of detailed testimonies from people describing their confusion upon discovering the spelling change. Many report checking their old books and being shocked to find the A spelling in books they were certain had shown E. The Berenstain Bears case has become a touchstone for Mandela effect research because it involves a shared childhood memory that feels absolutely certain to those who experience it, yet contradicts all available evidence. The phenomenon suggests that collective false memories can be more psychologically real than actual historical facts. The Missing of the World ending. One of the most recognizable songs in rock history is Queen's We Are the Champions, and millions of people remember Freddie Mercury ending the song with the triumphant declaration, "We are the champions of the world." This memory is so strong that it's referenced in movies, sports celebrations, and cultural parodies. However, the studio recording ends with just, "We are the champions," with no of the world conclusion, leaving many people stunned to discover their memory of the complete ending never existed. The discrepancy was widely noticed in 2016 when social media discussions revealed that many people were surprised to learn the song doesn't end with "of the world." The reaction was immediate and global, with millions of people insisting they clearly remembered hearing that specific ending countless times throughout their lives. Dr. Julia Shaw from University College London, who specializes in false memory research, studied the Queen song phenomenon and found it represents a particularly interesting case because people report not just remembering the phrase, but having emotional connections to that specific ending. Many described feeling disappointed or incomplete when they hear the song end without "of the world." Survey data collected by memory researchers indicates that approximately 80% of people familiar with the song initially expect it to end with "of the world" when asked to complete the lyrics. This suggests the false memory is nearly universal among those who know the song, making it one of the most widespread examples of collective misremembering. What makes this case unusual is that "of the world" does appear earlier in the song, "No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world," which might explain why people remember it at the ending. However, their memories are specifically of the song concluding with those words, not just including them somewhere in the lyrics. The false memory has influenced popular culture, with numerous movies, TV shows, and advertisements using the non-existent "of the world" ending in their soundtracks or references. This has created a cultural version of the song that's more widely known than the actual recorded version. Music memory experts note that people often remember emotionally satisfying conclusions to songs, even when those conclusions weren't actually recorded. The "of the world" ending provides a sense of completion and triumph that the actual ending lacks, potentially explaining why the false memory feels more correct than reality. Live performances of the song sometimes included improvised endings with "of the world," but studio recordings consistently end without that phrase. This discrepancy between live and recorded versions may have contributed to the confusion, though it doesn't explain why people specifically remember the studio version ending with words that were never recorded. The JFK car that gained extra passengers. Most Americans who learned about the Kennedy assassination remember President Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy riding in a 4-seat convertible when the shots were fired in Dallas. Their mental image of the tragic event shows the presidential couple in the back seat with 2 other occupants in front, Secret Service agents or drivers. However, historical footage and photographs clearly show 6 people in the limousine: the Kennedys, Texas Governor John Connally and his wife Nellie, plus driver Roy Kellerman and agent Sam Kinney. The discrepancy was first widely noticed in online discussions about the assassination, where many people expressed surprise at seeing 6 occupants in the famous Zapruder film. Their memories of news coverage, documentaries, and historical accounts all featured a smaller car with fewer people, making the actual footage seem wrong or altered. Dr. James Lampinen from the University of Arkansas studied memory distortions related to historical events and found that the JFK assassination represents a particularly complex case of false memory because people's recollections conflict with extensively documented visual evidence. The Zapruder film, multiple photographs, and witness testimonies all confirm 6 occupants, yet many people remember fewer. Survey research indicates that approximately 40% of Americans over age 50 initially recall 4 people in the car when asked to describe the assassination scene from memory. When shown actual footage, many express confusion and insist their memory of a smaller car feels more accurate than the visual evidence. The false memory appears to be related to how the tragedy was initially reported and later depicted in media. Early news accounts and dramatic recreations often focused on the presidential couple, potentially creating mental images that excluded other occupants from memory formation. Psychological analysis suggests that traumatic historical events are often remembered in simplified versions that focus on central figures while eliminating peripheral details. The Kennedy assassination may have been mentally edited by collective memory to emphasize the president and first lady, while unconsciously removing other passengers. The persistence of the false memory, despite extensive contradictory evidence, highlights how powerfully emotional events can shape recollection. Many people trust their memory of this traumatic moment more than documented historical footage, suggesting that significant events can create false memories that feel more authentic than reality. Recent studies using virtual reality to recreate historical events have found that people's emotional responses to the smaller car version are stronger than their reactions to historically accurate recreations, indicating that false memories can be more psychologically compelling than factual accounts. The South America that moved. Millions of people around the world remember South America being positioned directly below North America, with the continent oriented straight north-south. Their mental maps show South America aligned with North America, like a vertical continuation of the landmass. However, South America is actually positioned significantly to the east, with much of the continent sitting east of Florida. This geographical false memory affects an estimated 60% of people when tested on blank world maps. The discrepancy was discovered during educational research in 2014 when geography teachers noticed that students consistently placed South America in the wrong position on blank maps. Further investigation revealed that the misplacement wasn't due to poor education, but reflected a shared false memory that affected adults across different educational backgrounds. Dr. Sarah Cream-Regier from the University of Utah, who studies spatial memory, investigated the South America positioning phenomenon and found that people's internal mental maps consistently show the continent in a more westward position than it actually occupies. The false memory appears to be remarkably consistent across different cultures and geographical regions. International surveys conducted by geography education researchers found that participants from North America, Europe, and Asia all showed similar misplacement of South America on blank world maps. The consistency of the error across different cultural backgrounds suggested a systematic false memory rather than regional educational differences. What makes this case particularly intriguing is that many people report being shocked when they see accurate world maps showing South America's actual position. Their reaction isn't uncertainty or confusion, but genuine surprise, as if the continent had somehow moved from where they remembered it being located. The false memory appears to be reinforced by simplified map projections, commonly used in education, which sometimes distort continental positions to fit rectangular formats. However, the specific nature of the misremembering suggests something more than projection distortion. People have detailed memories of South America, being directly south of North America. Neurological studies of spatial memory indicate that geographical false memories activate the same brain regions as accurate spatial recollections, making them subjectively indistinguishable from correct geographical knowledge. People experiencing the South America false memory show confidence levels equal to those with accurate geographical memories. The geographical false memory has practical implications for navigation and travel, with some people reporting surprise when flight paths between North and South America don't match their expectations based on their internal mental maps of continental positions. The Tank Man Who Disappeared. One of the most iconic images of the 20th century shows a lone protester standing in front of a column of tanks in Tiananmen Square after the 1989 democracy protests in China. Millions of people around the world remember watching video footage of the tanks running over the protester, creating one of history's most powerful symbols of state oppression. However, in all documented footage, the tanks stop. The man climbs onto the lead tank briefly and then walks away safely. The memory of his death appears to be a mass false memory affecting millions of witnesses. The discrepancy was first widely discussed in 2014 when anniversary coverage of the Tiananmen Square protests prompted online discussions about the Tank Man incident. Many people expressed surprise to learn that the protester wasn't killed, insisting they had clear memories of seeing him crushed by the tanks on television news coverage. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus from the University of California, Irvine, a leading expert on false memories, studied the Tank Man phenomenon and found it represents one of the most emotionally charged examples of collective false memory. People's recollections include specific details about the aftermath, media reactions, and their own emotional responses to witnessing the death that never occurred. International surveys found that approximately 35% of people familiar with the incident initially believed the protester was killed when asked about the outcome before being shown the actual footage. The false memory appears strongest among people who were adults when the events occurred, suggesting it formed during initial news coverage. The emotional intensity of the false memory is particularly striking. Many people report feeling traumatized by their memory of watching the man die, describing it as a formative moment in their understanding of political oppression. The psychological impact of the false memory appears to be as strong as authentic traumatic memories. Media analysis suggests that the false memory may have been influenced by the broader context of the Tiananmen Square crackdown, where hundreds of protesters were killed. The emotional expectation that the tank man would be killed may have created false memories that felt more appropriate to the tragic circumstances than the actual peaceful resolution. Recent studies using brain imaging have found that people recalling the false death scenario show activation in trauma-related brain regions, indicating that their false memories have created genuine psychological trauma, responses to events that never happened. The tank man false memory demonstrates how powerful historical images can become distorted in collective memory when emotional expectations override factual outcomes, creating shared false memories that feel more historically significant than actual events. The Monopoly Man's missing monocle. For generations, people have recognized the Monopoly board game mascot as a distinguished gentleman with a top hat, mustache, and monocle. The monocle has been referenced in countless parodies, Halloween costumes, and cultural depictions of the character. However, the official Monopoly Man, Rich Uncle Pennybags, has never worn a monocle in any version of the game. The mass false memory affects an estimated 85% of people familiar with the character. The monocle false memory was first widely discussed in 2017 when social media posts about Mandela effects included images of the actual Monopoly Man without his expected eyewear. The reaction was immediate and widespread, with millions of people expressing disbelief and insisting they clearly remembered the monocle from childhood game sessions. Dr. Kimberly Wade from the University of Warwick studied character-based false memories and found that the Monopoly Man represents a particularly interesting case because people report visual memories of seeing the monocle on game boards, not just assuming it was there. Their recollections include specific details about the monocle's appearance and position. The false memory appears to be influenced by cultural associations between wealthy characters and monocles, most notably Mr. Peanut, the Planters mascot, who does wear a monocle. However, people's memories are specifically of the Monopoly Man wearing the eyewear, not confusion between different characters. Survey data indicates that when asked to draw the Monopoly Man from memory, over 80% of participants include a monocle in their illustrations. When later shown the actual character design, many express surprise and insist the version they remember must be from older game editions. Historical research into Monopoly game editions has found no evidence of the monocle ever appearing in official artwork, packaging, or promotional materials throughout the game's 85-year history. The character's design has remained remarkably consistent, yet the false memory persists across multiple generations of players. The monocle false memory has influenced popular culture, with numerous movies, TV shows, and advertisements depicting the Monopoly Man with a monocle despite this never being part of his official design. The cultural version of the character has become more widely recognized than the actual trademarked version. Recent analysis of childhood toy memories suggests that the monocle false memory may form during early game-playing experiences when children create mental associations between the character and symbols of wealth and sophistication, potentially adding the monocle to match their expectations of how rich characters should appear. The Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. Millions of people who wore Fruit of the Loom underwear remember the company's logo featuring a cornucopia, horn of plenty, behind the fruit. Their memories are specific and detailed. A brown wicker horn with various fruits spilling out of it, prominently displayed on clothing tags and packaging. However, Fruit of the Loom has never used a cornucopia in any version of their logo throughout the company's 170-year history. The mass false memory affects an estimated 70% of people familiar with the brand. The cornucopia false memory gained widespread attention in 2019, when online discussions revealed that many people were surprised to learn the logo contained only fruit with no cornucopia. The reaction was particularly strong because people's memories of the cornucopia were extremely detailed and associated with childhood experiences of getting dressed and learning about the logo. Dr. Cara Laney from Reed College, who studies commercial memory distortions, investigated the fruit of the loom phenomenon and found it represents one of the most vivid examples of brand-related false memory. People report not just remembering the cornucopia, but using it to learn what a cornucopia was, making it an educational memory as well as a commercial one. The false memory includes specific details about the cornucopia's appearance, position, and color that are remarkably consistent across different individuals. Most people remember it as brown, wicker-textured, positioned behind the fruit, and slightly tilted. The specificity suggests organized false memory formation rather than random confabulation. Company records and trademark filings confirm that Fruit of the Loom has never included a cornucopia in their logo designs, despite the false memory being widespread among consumers who wore the brand for decades. Historical logo variations show only different arrangements of fruit without any additional elements. The persistence of the cornucopia memory, despite contradictory evidence, has led to consumer confusion, with some people insisting that their old clothing must have featured a different logo than current products. However, examination of vintage Fruit of the Loom items consistently shows logos without cornucopias. Educational researchers have found that many people report learning the word cornucopia specifically from the Fruit of the Loom logo, creating strong associative memories between the brand and the concept. However, since the logo never included a cornucopia, these educational memories appear to be entirely false. The cornucopia false memory has become so widespread that it's influenced parody products and artistic references that include the non-existent design element, creating a cultural version of the logo that's more widely recognized than the actual trademarked version. The interview. Quote that was never spoken. One of the most famous movie quotes in horror cinema is, "Hello, Clarice," which millions of people remember Hannibal Lecter saying to FBI agent Clarice Starling when they first meet in The Silence of the Lambs. The quote has been referenced countless times in parodies, pop culture, and Halloween costumes. However, Anthony Hopkins never speaks those words in the film. His actual first words to Clarice are, "Good evening, Clarice." The mass misremembering affects an estimated 75% of people familiar with the movie. The false quote was first widely noticed in 2018 when movie trivia discussions revealed that many people were surprised to learn Hopkins never says, "Hello, Clarice," in the film. The reaction was immediate and emotional, with fans insisting they clearly remembered hearing that specific greeting in the famous first meeting scene. Dr. Lynn Nadel from the University of Arizona, who studies memory and emotion, investigated movie quote false memories and found that "Hello, Clarice" represents a particularly interesting case because people's memories include not just the words, but Hopkins' specific delivery and intonation when speaking the non-existent line. The false memory appears to be so strong that it's influenced popular culture more than the actual quote. Movies, TV shows, and comedy sketches consistently use "Hello, Clarice" rather than "Good evening, Clarice" when referencing or parodying the scene, creating a cultural version of the quote that's more widely known than the original. Survey data indicates that when asked to quote Hannibal Lecter's greeting to Clarice, over 70% of respondents initially provide the incorrect "Hello, Clarice" version. When shown the actual scene, many express surprise and insist the version they remember must be from a different part of the movie. The specificity of the false memory is particularly striking. People don't just remember the wrong words. They remember Hopkins' precise pronunciation of Clarice and the pause before it, suggesting they're accessing detailed audiovisual memories of dialogue that was never recorded. Psychological analysis suggests that "Hello, Clarice" may feel more natural as an opening greeting than "Good evening, Clarice," potentially explaining why the false memory has replaced the actual quote in collective consciousness. The incorrect version matches social expectations for how introductory conversations should begin. Recent studies of movie memory have found that iconic scenes are often remembered in simplified or improved versions that feel more dramatically satisfying than the actual film dialogue, suggesting that emotional expectations can systematically alter recollections of entertainment experiences. Conclusion. These 10 documented cases of mass memory changes represent more than simple mistakes or poor recall. They're evidence of a systematic phenomenon where millions of people share identical false memories that feel more real and emotionally authentic than actual historical records. From movie quotes that were never spoken to geographical changes that never occurred, each case challenges our understanding of how human consciousness creates and preserves memory. What makes these mass memory changes particularly unsettling is their consistency and emotional intensity. These aren't vague impressions or uncertain recollections. They're vivid, detailed memories that millions of people would stake their reputation on, despite contradicting all available evidence. The shared specificity suggests that collective false memory formation follows patterns that psychology is only beginning to understand. The phenomenon forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the reliability of human memory and the nature of shared cultural knowledge. If millions of people can simultaneously remember historical events, cultural references, and factual information incorrectly, then our confidence in collective memory as a reliable record of the past may be fundamentally misplaced. Perhaps most disturbing is that many of these false memories feel more correct or emotionally satisfying than the actual facts. People often prefer their remembered versions to documented reality, suggesting that human consciousness may naturally edit experiences to create more psychologically compelling narratives than what actually occurred. The cases also reveal how false memories can become more culturally significant than authentic records. The incorrect versions of quotes, logos, and events are often more widely referenced in popular culture than the actual originals, creating a feedback loop where false memories gain cultural authority that reinforces their perceived authenticity. The implications extend beyond individual psychology to questions about the nature of historical truth and cultural transmission. If collective human memory systematically distorts major events, cultural references, and factual information, then our understanding of shared history may be built on foundations that are less solid than we assume. These mass memory changes prove that reality and memory exist in a far more complex relationship than we've understood. Whether caused by psychological factors, cultural influences, or something more mysterious, they demonstrate that human consciousness doesn't simply record experiences, it actively creates them, sometimes producing shared false realities that feel more authentic than documented truth. The greatest mystery isn't just why these false memories occur, but why they feel so undeniably real to those who experience them. The answer may reveal fundamental truths about consciousness, reality, and the nature of human experience that we're only beginning to discover.